सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
National Crime Records Bureau, run by the Home Ministry, it gives us annual statistics on crimes of various kinds in India. You've been reading many reports coming out in all our media over the past few days because NCRB's 2021 report had been released. Now, within all that, there is also a section on accidental deaths, suicides, etc. Now, if you see that section and you see suicides in particular, now the reason this caught my attention was that there's been this debate that's raging in Indian politics and Indian political economy, and also in the world of activism, journalism, etc., about farmer suicide. So you will see that anytime there's a debate on farming, TV debate, parliament debate on the streets with the farm protests, you will hear people say millions of farmers have died by suicide. That every year lakhs of farmers are dying by suicide. So first of all, suicide is a very unfortunate thing. Nobody should be in a situation where they have to take their own lives. And when that happens, it in a way underlines the failure of our entire society and system, that one human being, one citizen got so hopeless that they decided to end their lives. So you cannot be insensitive about any death by suicide. मौत तो आनी है, one day death will come. But if you are persuaded, if anybody is persuaded to sort of come in the way of the divine will and do it at the time of their choosing, that means it was a very unfortunate situation. So that is not something that we can take lightly. But what happens is, when you politicize it, when you politicize death by suicide, it becomes, I won't say more dangerous, because sometimes, say for example, if one category of citizens had a very high percentage of death by suicide, then you would, by politicizing it, you'll be focusing attention there so that the right kind of policy correctives can be set in place so it doesn't happen. But if you politicize it because it suits your politics, or if you politicize it in a data-free environment or with a data-free mindset, sort of presuming that nobody will check data or that data is not available, or you selectively want to believe your kind of data, then it can lead to policy distortions. Policy distortions can also mean taking away resources from one section of the economy, society, etc. to another. I'm not putting any section or any sector above or lower than anybody. I'm making a larger principled point, and that's why we need data. Now, if you look at data and you weigh it against this entire impression that lakhs and lakhs of farmers are dying by suicide, that suicide is now sort of the preferred way of end the misery of a farmer's life, that farming profession has now become so unremunerative, so frustrating, etc., for various reasons, right? Then the numbers are counterintuitive. Numbers tell us a different story. So until 2013, NCRB did not give us a separate figure for suicide by farmers. They listed them among self-employed people. So self-employed people then were about 38% of all of India's suicides. So if you go back to 2012, the number is about 38% of all deaths were accounted for by self-employed people, of which say about 11.1% of all suicides in 2012. I'm taking you back 10 years because that in a way is a good reference point. That were farmers. So first of all, we have to see both we have to see absolute numbers and percentages. So absolute numbers, this year, for example, a total number of suicides, that is 2021, is 1,64,033. If we go backwards and see this chart of total number of suicides in India over the past many years, say go back to 2015, you will see that every year there is a little increase. Generally, if you go right back to 2012, we will see that the number of suicides in India has generally kept pace with the rise in the number of India's population. So India's population rises now by about 1% per year. So that is the average increase in suicide. Say 10 years back, it may have been about 1,35,000. Today it's 1,64,000. There is one unusual thing though. Between 2019 and 20, the numbers have risen slightly more steeply than usual. They've gone up from 1,39,000 to 1,55,000. Last year, 2021, 1,64,000. So first of all, the absolute base number, that is the number of people dying by suicides in India, is in the 1.5 lakh ballpark. So once again, even when one exaggerates, or even if one says, no, this is understated, there must be more people dying, number can't be lakhs every year. The second important thing is, look at the trend in death by suicide among farmers. And when we say farmers, we have a larger cohort here. The entire cohort includes farmers as well as farm laborers. So farmers, we mean people who own land and even people who lease land to cultivate it. 90% of the people who unfortunately have died by suicide, farmers, owned land. About 10% have been leaseholders. And also laborers who are exclusively involved in labor activity on our agricultural fields, on farms. If you look at those numbers, generally you will find, and I'm giving you a chart from 2015, which my colleague Nikhil Rampal, who's our data journalist, he's helped put together. You will see that the absolute numbers of farmer deaths by suicide have actually declined. They declined quite substantially after 2015 because between 14 and 15 they went up a little bit. Then they declined and they've more or less plateaued. And you can see that on that chart very clearly. Again, if you see the average of these last 7 years, the average of these last 7 years for deaths in the entire farming sector by suicide is about 12 to 13,000 per year. Again, it's 12 to 13,000 dead by suicide, 12 to 13,000 too many, but it is not lakhs and it's not tens of thousands. That's an important point to note. Among these also, there is a change, and that is something that Nikhil found out for me, and he mentioned it to me. In fact, he also wrote a story about this, that even among the farm sector suicides, there is a change. So the number of farmers, that is landowners and leaseholders, their number for suicides has come down, which is good news. But the numbers of farm laborers who are dying by suicide has gone up. So in fact, if you see this year, 2021, 5,318 farmers have died. These are landowning or leaseholding farmers, but 5,563 agricultural laborers have died. So this chart is color coded. You will see the difference there also, that numbers, if at all, have risen for farm laborers. For farmers, numbers are down, but overall also numbers have gone down. And instead of then going up at least by 1.5% as population of India has grown, they've actually declined in absolute numbers. Now, what declines in absolute numbers over a rising base, because India's population is going up, will also decline accordingly in overall percentage of the total suicide. So if you look at total suicides now, the average that the farmers have, the farm sector has, is 6.6%. In 2015, it was 9.4%. So remember, even in 2012, it was 11%. So first of all, India's suicide deaths, you can say it with a sense of relief. I wish it wasn't there at all. But human beings lead complex lives. but it was never in the ballpark of lakhs. It was in the ballpark of a little over 1 lakh, now about 1.5 lakh. And even then, going right back to 2012, number of percentage of total farm suicides was not more than 11% or so, 11.1% actually. So when people say that, oh, millions have died, then you have to, in your own minds, I keep saying, never switch off your bullshit detector. And when in doubt, look at data. And NCRB reports are freely available. They are public documents. I'm sharing the link with you. You can see the whole document, and I'll be also borrowing many charts from it to explain some of these things to you. So you will see, for example, this chart that our team, our graphics team and Nikhil have put together, and you will see the bylines of the chart. See how the percentage share of farm suicides are declining as a percentage of overall suicides. It's quite a steep graph downwards, which is a good thing. So in 7 years, from 9.4% to 6.6%, right? That's a steep decline. Good news there. So once again, it's not as if India's farm sector is in such a mess. Farming is a tough profession, but it's not as if India's farm sector is in such a mess. Everything is broken, right? You can't be having a situation when India is producing humongous surpluses. We've had a big green revolution in North India and many, many green revolutions in many parts of India. And then the farm sector being in such distress that lots and lots of farmers are choosing to end their lives. Fortunately, that is not happening. So we have to give everything a fact check all the time. Now, what does NCRB do? How does it classify suicides? It puts suicides in 9 categories, and I'm listing them in no particular order. So there is students, daily wage earners, professionals or salaried people, unemployed people, retirees, self-employed people, housewives, farmers, farm sector, and then a larger section called others, where various other categories would come in. Now, if you look at all this, and I told you that farm sector's percentage actually is declined. So what is it that has gone up? What's gone up, again, counterintuitively, because somehow we had not imagined it, because you know what? Daily wage paid laborers are not such a big voting demographic. Farmers are a voting demographic, but daily wage paid laborers are not, because they are too diverse, they are all over the country. A lot of them happen to be also urban, in cities. So they are now the largest percentage of suicides in the country. How large? 25.6% this year. That is a hell of a lot. That's very rude and that's very bad. So 25.6%. What is the second one? Which is the demographic or section that they have left behind? It is housewives. Until now, generally, they form the largest chunk of suicides in India. This year, in 2021, they've been pushed to the second spot by daily wage laborers. Now, this may have happened because of COVID, because a lot of people walked back home. They lost their daily wage paid jobs. These things need investigation. But what this shows is a major changes taken place in Indian society, which is reflecting in this suicide data. Until 5 years back, housewives were decisively ahead of daily wage laborers. Today, they are almost a half. So daily wage laborers now are 25.6, housewives are 14.1. Daily wage laborers, their numbers overall have almost doubled since 2015. Since 2015, they were in the ballpark of 24,000 per year. Now they are 42,000 plus per year. So that shows that in 6 years, they have nearly doubled. Farmers, on the other hand, these are land-owning farmers, land-owning and leasehold farmers, they have declined from 8,000 ballpark in 2015 to 5,000 now. At the same time, in this period, business people, this is self-employed people who run their own businesses, and I suspect a lot of it will be MSMEs, that is micro, small and medium enterprises. They have gone up. They have nearly doubled from 12,000 ballpark to 20,000. Again, if you add business people, that is self-employed people, and daily wage paid laborers, that's almost 35% of all suicides in India. So you can see where stress is in Indian economy, because after all, something drives people to this kind of desperation. Now, you can't judge anybody as to why this is happening. You can't question them sort of retrospectively, but you can see some trends there. In fact, if you add some numbers, some percentages, daily wage paid laborers 25.6, people running businesses or self-employed people, that is 7.3, salaried people 9.7. That is almost 1.5 times as many salaried people dying by suicide as, say, farmers. I'm not undermining farmers' suicides, right? Anybody dying by suicide, I've said for the 10th time, and I might end up saying another 10 times before we are done with this. But the fact is that 1.5 times more salaried people are dying by suicide than farmers. So that is 9.7. If you add them all, it's 42.6%. And if you add to this list unemployed people, this is outside of farm labor, outside of daily wage paid workers, unemployed people, that is another 8.4%. So this comes to a neat 51%. So you can now see where stress is in India's economy. I will use a chart from the NCRB report itself that shows you this split, and that is very self-explanatory. It's a pie chart. It's very simple to understand. Then there are some other highlights which we should look at, and we should try and draw lessons from these. First of all, why do people die by suicide? What is it that people say drove them to suicide? Because they write some suicide notes. Police comes to some conclusions. The largest section is people who say that family problems, stresses in family issues were the cause of their taking their own lives. That is 33.2%. Illness of various kinds from chronic to cancer is 18.6%. Then third biggest is drug and alcohol abuse. That is 6.4%. Marriage-related stress and issues, 4.8%. Love affairs, 4.6%. Bankruptcy or indebtedness, 3.5%. Unemployment, 2.2%. Professional and career problems, 1.6%. Fall in social status, 0.5%. Illicit relations or suspected illicit relations, about 0.4%. Then there are several others. Once again, I'll share the pie chart from NCRB data with you. You can take a look at this. Now, the interesting thing is, look at the male-female split. So if you see also this chart, which is number 2.7 on the NCRB report, if you see the male-female split, the overall male-female split is 72.5% male and 27.5% female, which means for every 3 men approximately who die by suicide, 1 woman dies by suicide. Now, you might be surprised looking at this, but you will discover some other highlights when you cut and dice this data by age. And that's where I use another chart from the NCRB report. And that tells us that there is one age group where men and women are not just about equal in numbers when it comes to dying by suicide, but women are actually marginally higher. Guess what that age group is? That age group is below 18 years. Below 18-year suicides, 5,075 men or boys died by suicide in 2021, but 5,655 young women died. So once again, what is the reason for this? You will also see this more starkly as we go to other age groups. Now you come to it, below 18, women are maybe 10% higher than men. 10% more women or more girls than boys. But between the age of 18 to 30, in that group, women are half of the men who died by suicide. So 37,941 men, 18,588 women. Then you come to the 30 to 45 demographic, and again a surprise comes up. Now the number of women becomes 1/4, approximately 1/4. So it's 40,415 men and 11,629 women. And then you go to an even higher, even older demographic, 45 to 60, the number of women becomes about 1/5. So people have to figure out the reasons behind this also. At the same time, people have to also look at the data when they reduce I think that we do great disservice to India's farmers by constantly sort of hitting away at their pride by saying farmers are committing suicide, farmers are committing suicide, farmers are committing suicide, as if farming is a hopeless profession. Farmers also, we have to make a presumption, are proud of the profession they are engaged in because they feed all of us, they produce surpluses, they feed their families, they build their houses, they pay taxes. Don't think farmers don't pay taxes. And we should also not reduce them into these bhukha nangas just because it suits our political discourse. Because in India, it's not just that more daily wage paid laborers are dying than farmers, but also more business people are dying than farmers, more unemployed people are dying than farmers. And also, if you cut this data on another basis, and that's another chart in terms of education, and you will again see that the number of illiterate, totally illiterate people who are dying by suicide is not that much. It's only 11%. What is the largest demographic of people who are dying by suicide? It's matriculates and secondary school pass. That is 24%. So once again, don't go by stereotypes, because stereotypes tend to become fact-free or data-free. And when you go in that direction, you tend to make very bad policy errors.